Greetings, I am Tom Merle. On this week's episode, I interview the host of Healthy Living in the Bronx, Mary Vin Rose. Check it out. Greetings, I am Tom Merle. Welcome to the celebration. As you know, this is my year of courage. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today sharing your greatest gifts and your time and energy means the world to me. This week, I have an amazing guest. She goes by the name of Mary Vin Rose. How's it going today, Mary?
Going good. Thank you, Tom.
Yes, my pleasure. Mary Vin Rose is best known for her limited talk cable series, Healthy Living in the Bronx, where she highlights people and organizations that are helping Bronx residents live a healthier life. Mary is a self-love and mental health advocate who is dedicated to promoting wellness through art and media. That's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. So take us back to the origin story. Where did Healthy Living in the Bronx originate for you?
So for me, it came out of a production class that I was taking. One of my co-professors, I kind of wanted to give up because just a lot of things, little circumstances were happening in my life. And she said, I'm not going to let you give up. And you have to create a show idea within 24 hours. Now, at the time, I didn't know she was kind of teasing me, but I took it as a real challenge. And being who I am, I never run away from a challenge. And I'm not sure if you know this or your audience at home knows this, but out of the 62 counties in New York State, the Bronx has been deemed the unhealthiest. And I started to ask heavy questions like, why is that? Is it because we don't want to be healthy? Is this systemic? Is it because of lack of resources, or is it lack of accessibility to fresh produce? Why is that? Do we not have healthcare professionals here who want to service the community, or wellness professionals? And because I know I was on a wellness journey of my own and I wanted to get service in my community, I said there has to be professionals, and I want to see if I can bring them in. So I created a talk-based series all about wellness here in the Bronx. And when I created this pitch, I showed my professor, and she was like, I think this is absolutely amazing, and I can't see why it wouldn't get picked up. So after a few pitches, and I make it seem so serendipitous, like I just made a pitch and I got a show. It was obvious, it was a long process, but ultimately we wound up creating a really amazing show that I'm super proud of.
That's powerful. Did you always have an interest in doing TV?
I did. I've always had an interest in TV, media, just art in general. Like most kids, like art saved me. I feel that's something I'm really passionate about. Like later on in my life, I really want to give back to my community, maybe like create some type of like performing arts center or community. I don't know. I dream about those things, but I went to performing art middle school. And at that time in my life, I actually didn't speak a lot. I just couldn't. I just was not comfortable speaking, but I was introduced to dance in a more formal way. I've always danced, but like I actually had structure where we had periods dedicated to the art that you auditioned for. And the thing I auditioned for was dance. And from there, I went to high school and I continued dancing. Now, when I got to college, I went to a university that didn't have communications. And instead of transferring, I decided that I would try to find internships and things like that in TV. And but my parents were nervous, like many parents. They were like, that's not a stable career. You need to get something in HR. So that's what I did. I wound up getting a job in marketing, and I wound up becoming an event planner. And throughout my time of being an event planner, I just remember thinking to myself, I like event planning because I like the creative part of it. I love doing the fashion shows. I love doing like the lights, the runway, the figuring out the color pattern for the themes or the seasons. And I'm like, you're just prolonging what it is you really want to do. And that's when I had enough. And I said, you know what? I quit my job. It took some time off. I traveled for about a year. And in that, when I came back home, I was like, you know what? I'm going to enroll in communications and production and my local college. And that's what I did.
Where do you think that within you, that emotional strength to kind of go against the pressure and go for your dreams. Where do you think that came from?
It came from dreams. I'm a heavy dreamer. Like I feel bad for people who don't remember their dreams at all. But for some reason, my dreams, like, they stay with me so heavy. And when I wake up in the morning, I feel like I have a whole dream journal. And because my dreams hit me so hard, it's like I felt like I could either keep fighting it or I could just embrace it. And I just realized the more I've embraced more of who I truly am, the easier other things have come into my life. I've lost a lot of things, but I've gained so much more fulfilling things, people, and just opportunities.
That's powerful. Now, I know you were saying before we started that you didn't start in front of the camera, that you started in production. What was that like, making that switch?
Oh, yeah. So being in events, always, one thing about events is that I was always promoting someone else in their brand, which I love doing. I still love doing. And I've always been on production. Like, I've done a lot of short films at this point. I've even done like some stage management work for plays, and nothing like compares to watching someone or something that you've worked on from beginning to end. I love seeing a project from beginning to end. That's one thing I love about art. It's like almost instant gratification, right? But making that switch to actually being in front of the camera, I'll never forget my first shoot by myself, where like I didn't have a co-host, I didn't have anyone with me, it was just me. I did a really good job, but I remember afterwards my whole crew was like clapping for me, and I walked up to like my floor manager and I was shaking. I was like literally shaking, and he's looking at me, he's like, "Mary, why are you shaking? You did phenomenal." I'm like, "I don't know, I don't do this, this isn't me." And he calmly reminded me, he was like, "Mary, this is you. Don't say that. I know we've been taught over and over and over that we must stay in our lane, and that especially as women, that we can't be multifaceted, that we have to pick a niche. But you can be multifaceted and you can have it all, just not all at once. So today you was in front of the camera, and today you was an awesome in front of the camera talent, and embrace that." So that's what I'm learning to do. So that transition, which seems so small, just going from director to host, was a huge deal for me. It was actually more nerve-wracking. I've actually skydived before. And if I had to choose which one like made me shake more, it was talking on camera.
Well, that's awesome that you were able to work through that and find that you had this whole other part of yourself that shined your brilliance and is making a difference in the world. That's awesome. So speaking of, talk to me a little more about healthy living in the Bronx. What are some of the issues it tackles that you're passionate about?
Oh, healthy living in Bronx. We have discussed everything from how to heal from abusive relationships to why the food you eat matters. I love, one of my favorite episodes thus far is that we actually brought an acupuncturist on. She's an Afro-Latina, and she spoke a lot about her journey and how like she was so worried about telling her family that she wasn't taking the traditional medicine route that she thought she was going to take, and that she was actually going to service the community, which has been stereotyped to not invest money in alternative medicine. And it was just a very interesting conversation. And she make jokes now how people from our own community will come in and go, "Where's the short Asian lady?" And she goes, "No, this Dominicana is doing acupuncture and healing us and finding other ways." Like, one thing I want to make sure we do with the show is that we don't deter people from going to the doctor, not at all. We want, our standard medicine, but we want our community to know that we also have alternatives. Another one of my favorite episodes is I had a young woman come on, and she talked about being a survivor of being sexually assaulted as a child. And her licensed job is that she's a licensed massage therapist. And I was shocked when that came out during the interview, because for me, like, if that happened to me, I'm not sure how I would react. I know that I probably wouldn't want people touching me. I know I wouldn't want to touch people. But when I asked her why, she said it was because she wanted to help women, and especially women of color, reclaim their bodies. And I thought that was so powerful. And in our most recent episode that we're going to bring out in season 2 is that I had an individual who he is a groundskeeper or like an agricultural specialist for our local community center in Kingsbridge, which is a part of the Bronx. And there's a community garden where neighbors in the zip code can actually plant for free. And he teaches about seasonal vegetables. And I find that's so important about, because our conversation on the show a lot is about the access to fresh food. This community garden allows people to basically not go hungry. It's free. Like all they have to do is volunteer and help maintain the garden. So you don't have to go to the McDonald's. You're already saying we'll go to McDonald's because it's cheaper, right? We could get the dollar menu or the dollar chicken sandwich. But now you can go to the garden and get fresh tomatoes and fresh cucumbers and, okra and greens. And you can make meals out of those things essentially for free and nutritious and not, create problems in our body.
Sounds like you have a diverse representation of guests that really speak to the awesome work going on in the Bronx.
Yes.
How do you select your guests?
So it's usually like a series of things. It's like, people send me stuff. Like I get, like, whether it's through social media, whether it's through an email, sometimes it's through networking events. Sometimes, like I have associate producers who look out for people. They range. Like my first season, I really want to focus on women and women of color. But I did bring on a man by the name of Henry Obispo, who's just doing phenomenal things. He introduced me to what hydroponics are. I had no idea what hydroponics are. Like, it's just another form of growing fruits and vegetables, or just produce. So yeah, and the next season, season 2, we're gonna actually start getting into other topics such as like financial literacy. I've always knew how important finances were, but it wasn't until recently I went to a wellness event and I realized out of every single wellness event I went to, no one covered money. And one of the biggest stressors for a community like the Bronx is finances. It's no secret that our county is one of the, registered as one of the poorest counties in America. And why is that? So again, it's going back to those questions, like why? Is it systemic? So when we look at our guests, we look at a range of topics in the community and who can bring to the forefront, addressing these issues. Like, one of my main goals is not just to have the conversation, but to also provide solutions and tools and actual real method tools that my viewers can go home and actually implement in their everyday lives.
How do you come up with your questions? Do you do it on the spot? Do you think of them in advance?
No. I take my journalism very serious. I dig a lot. It takes, depending on the topic, sometimes it takes me a week, sometimes maybe even a little longer. Maybe I've been thinking about this topic for a long time. But granted, like any good interviewer, you probably know this, like you have your pre-list of questions, but as someone's answering, if something sparks my interest, I then go, okay, you know what, like, let me use that. Let me dig deeper onto that. Something that I might not consider, like that young woman that I was mentioning about being a massage therapist. When she revealed that, I had no idea it was going to go in that direction. Obviously, I was able to start digging deeper into like why she wanted to do that, choose this new career path. But yeah, I definitely take my research and my journalism very serious.
We just, this past week, had the midterm elections go down. Did you cover it all, the midterm elections, or how have you seen the midterm elections affecting your community?
So the midterm elections, I felt was very, very powerful in this community. As you know, I'm in District 15, but the District 14, which is where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the youngest woman to ever be elected to Congress, has won. I actually got to interview her right before midterm election, so that was exciting. So I feel like we have a sense of hope now again. That hope that we kind of lost a little bit, because a lot of people thought for a long time our vote doesn't matter, our voice doesn't matter. So to have a young woman like her represent us is powerful. The lines were longer than I've ever seen ever. It was, again, we made such strides. We still have a long way to go. We still have more work to do, but I definitely feel like we gained a new sense of hope. And me being who I am, and actually my background in college, I actually studied political science. like, I saw things that I know a lot of people might have missed. Like, I saw that, a lot of voter, I don't know what's the proper terminology, but like, you know, the lines were unnecessarily long. Like, the machines were not working, and it was something that was happening all throughout the city, and not just the Bronx, but probably throughout the country. And we America, we gotta do better. Like, we have to do better. Like voter deterioration. Like, we gotta. That's not okay. But otherwise than that, I feel like it was nice. Even though there was long lines, it was nice. I saw people handing out pizza. There were some people like people like were on party buses. Like, it was like people were like really serious about this. So I was like, I hope we keep the momentum. I really do.
That's awesome. It's so great getting to hear what election night was like throughout the country. Or even where I was taking a selfie and someone was like, let me jump in. So some stranger I didn't even know jumped in. It's just like the excitement because especially, I'm in a Democratic state, that this feeling that, okay, we can have some semblance of taking back power from a white supremacist government. So that's cool to hear what it was like going on in your neck of the woods, as they say.
Yeah. This neck of the woods, like I said, the lines were long, but for the most part, people were really good about it.
What was that like doing that interview? That sounds like an absolute honor.
Oh yeah, it was before she even got the Democratic seat. She was actually campaigning to overthrow the incumbent at the time, and it was a great honor. It really was, and I definitely made sure that, like, as a political interviewer, that I definitely stay neutral. So I made sure the questions that I asked her were not what you would think would come from someone who just automatically is one-sided. I definitely try to make sure all my interviews, I come from a very neutral place. And I think she could see that, and she respected that. And so basically my questions weren't all easy. There were a couple of moments where she did have to pause, and I liked that. She didn't fumble or go, oh no, I wasn't expecting that. But she was very poised and very graceful. And if she needed a minute, she took her minute to really think and answer the question. I think she's a very thoughtful, inspiring, and just motivating just person. And she believes in what she's saying, and she really wants to make a difference for the Bronx. And when I told her about the show, Healthy Living in the Bronx and the things that, we want to do, she's completely on board with, hearing different ideas and proposals and trying to take things, to Washington to really help our community. She doesn't just represent the Bronx, she represents a portion of Queens as well. But to still have a Bronxite in Washington, as passionate as she is about her community, is everything to us.
Where did your passion for mental health and self-love come from? When did that start to enter into your mission?
That entered in my mission when I realized a lot of people like me didn't talk about it. It really hit me hard one day when I told one of my closest friends that I struggle with intense anxiety and, seasonal depression. And her reaction to me was like, girl, what? We all get sad sometimes. And I'm like, no, it's different for me. Like, I'm very high functioning. I hit my deadlines. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a TV personality. But there's times where I have to take extended time to pour more self-care than my standard self-care routines. And, that involves going to a therapist. That involves turning the phone off, doing cleanses and doing things of that nature just to be okay. And, I told one of my other friends who I saw was having similar patterns or emotional patterns as myself. And I told her she might want to get a therapist. And she was very insulted. She thought that was very, I guess, bad for me to say. And I couldn't understand why. But I realized over time it's because we don't talk about it. And I did a moderation for an event where I was a moderator. It was an event called Grounding Through Love. And the moment I said, many people in my community say, oh, we go to church, we pray it out. A lot of people nodded their heads in the audience. They were like, yep, we know that feeling. And not to say we don't need church. I definitely am a person of faith, but I need something in addition to that. Like, when I was going to seek my therapist, I prayed about it and said, okay, God, if this is the person for me, please let me know. If it's not the person for me, also let me know. because it's almost like a dating routine almost. You have to kind of date your therapist a little bit to make sure you find the right fit for you. And because I saw that so many people had this stigma against it, I was like, all right, I'm going to be a voice for this. Like this well put together young woman who hits all her deadlines and is, very on it. She too has someone else helping her and has created a routine to make sure checking in on her mental health.
That's powerful because in addition to what you're talking about, that we don't visualize successful people as having struggles with mental health. It's like this image of you're almost debilitated to do anything, but you can be functional and still be secretly working through depression or anxiety. So that's powerful that you talk about that. You highlighted those some of the resistance people have to the conversation and a little bit of aha moments people have when you start to. What have you found are talking points or things that you bring up that people who might be resistant start to nod their head and start to resonate with what you're saying? What have been some of your guests or some things you found that are a bridge to people understanding this is an important conversation?
I think one of the biggest things is that I always say it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not like a death sentence. It doesn't mean the world is ending. It doesn't mean that you can't be successful. It doesn't mean you won't find love or that you can't provide for your family, you can't buy that home that you dream of, or even take vacation. It just means you have to deal with your daily life a little differently, and you have to prep and do things a little differently. And I think one of the things that I said that connected with a lot of women in that particular event was that I had to explain to them, being like even like a social introvert, is that before a public speaking event, or even like before even getting on this podcast, I had to take some time out. Sometimes it can range for just 30 minutes and sometimes it's 2 hours, depending on how big the event is, where I have to literally prep myself. I have to meditate. I have to pray. I have to give myself affirmations. I have to talk to myself in third person. When I first started that third person conversation with myself, I used to think I was crazy. I read it like in some article where they said, oh, big CEOs talk to themselves in third person in the mirror. I'm like, so I'm in the mirror now, like, Mary, you got this. You can do this. Like what? Now I do it so much, it doesn't feel crazy at all. But when I first started, I feel like absolutely crazy because I didn't learn that from my parents. And I didn't learn that from school. So who was to teach me that? I was teaching that to myself. And I found that is so empowering when we look at ourselves like we are actually in control of much of our life. Like there's some things we can't control, right? But there's many things that we can. And if you know that you struggle with anxiety or depression or any other mental situation, I think it's empowering to know that and find tools and rituals and routines. It's almost like a superpower because I can now identify with a whole group of people who feel like they are alone. And I always say I don't do what I do for glory or anything like that. It's always to connect and let people know you're never alone. We're all in this together.
Yes. Put some music behind that. Have that as your alarm. That was inspiring. We had started to talk before the podcast began that this was my year of courage, and you had resonated with that. What for you is courage?
What is courage? Courage is not always being fearless and doing it anyways. So to me, that's my year. What I've told myself, I said, you know what, Mary, you're not always going to be fearless. Okay. You're going to have fear, but you're going to put fear in the backseat. You're going to put the seatbelt on and say, I'm the driver and I'm going to do this. It's doing the thing you want to do regardless of fear. That's courage to me.
And how do you put the fear in the backseat and do what you want to do regardless? How do you do that?
I literally allow myself to feel. In the past, I wouldn't allow myself to feel. I allow myself to feel that anxiety, the knots in the stomach. I acknowledge it. I give it its presence. I acknowledge it's there. I said, okay, I know you're here and you're here to protect me. Normally you need fear because like when you cross the street, you don't have any fear, you're not going to look both ways, right? It's that little bit of fear that makes you go, okay, let me be aware. But I acknowledge that fear and I say, okay, fear, I know you're here, but we're not in danger. Nothing's going wrong. This moment is actually going to propel us forward. So I need you to have a seat, take a minute, and let me do what I have to do. So that's how I do it. Like I kind of like talk to myself again in a third person, and I acknowledge my emotions and I allow myself to feel.
That's awesome. Rather than ignoring it and it
Right.
having to be the silent thing that controls you. I love that. Do you have any courage role models?
Oh, so many. Where do I start? Obviously, the Queen Maven of all media, Oprah, of course, right? Like the mother of truth. Live your truth. I hope she sees this. Like Super Soul Sunday, I'm coming for you. I also really, really admire Taraji P. Henson. I love what she's doing, especially now. I read her book, Around the Way Girl. I've always loved her, but I really loved her after reading that book. And then what she's doing in the mental health space is phenomenal. I'm really excited about her new foundation. Another person that I love when it comes to courage, Brene Brown, another like queen mother of like courage. I mean, she's just one of those people who I've read every single one of her books, and she's just so inspiring. She's the person who made me look in the mirror and like, tell your truth. You can either run from it or you can live in it and use it to connect with the world around you. And she's the one who taught me that vulnerability is where your superpowers lie. That's where the magic, that's where the good stuff happens. So definitely those three individuals. And the list goes on and on. A bunch of women that I admire. There's a couple of men in there too. But when I think about courage, those are the first three that come to my mind.
You have awesome super sheroes. So where can people check out Healthy Living in the Bronx and connect with you? Where can they do those type of things?
Yeah, so they can check out Healthy Living in the Bronx internationally and nationally on bronxnet.org. What they have to do is that you'll see when you press the watch button, you'll see that it has like a section that has like different types of channels. It says like Bronx Live, Bronx Culture, and then it says Bronx Omni. You want to click the Bronx Omni, and every Wednesday at 8:30 it streams live. And for those who may be watching this who are Bronx residents, I know a lot of my friends are going to tune in. Hi, friends. You guys can watch it on Channel 70 on Optimum or 36 on Files. And I'm also bringing it to my YouTube channel now. I'm going to be rerunning some episodes on my YouTube, which is youtube.com/Mary Vin Rose. So basically my name, which is awesome. And I'm really, really excited about that, like bringing it to the YouTube space as well, so I can kind of interact and comment with people.
Yes, definitely. So a couple quick questions for you. One thing that I wish people understood about the Bronx is...
that we are nice and friendly.
That's powerful. If you really knew me, you'd know that
I dance anywhere, including supermarkets.
If I could eat knowledge, my first meal would be...
If I could eat knowledge, my first... anything involving marine biology.
If I could have a superpower, it would be...
time travel and flying. I know there's only one, but whatever.
And would you rather be a dragon or have a dragon?
Have a dragon.
And what would the dragon's name be?
Blue fire.
Blue fire?
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Blue for sure.
This has been a really amazing opportunity to learn about the awesome work you're doing and healthy living in the Bronx. I really appreciate you taking the time to share it with all of us here at the celebration.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been amazing.
It's my absolute pleasure. And another shout out to Fee for recommending and introducing us. Fee's been like the silent, hey, she's been like this silent curator of my podcast. We've had quite a few guests recommended by Fee. And she said next year she'll introduce herself to all of us and do an interview. So we look forward to that.
Oh.
So I always like to end with allowing the guests to conclude with an invitation. And it's not necessarily like a promo invitation. We already know folks are going to go check out your stuff, but more, what is your invitation to people to be, to think about, to go for, to live? What is your invitation to the people listening?
My invitation would be to follow what's inside of you. And nobody knows what's inside of you like you do. And most importantly, you are not your circumstances. You are not your situation. You are not your bank account. You are not your relationship status. You are none of that. You are the being that's inside of you. And if you have purpose, just keep following. Like, my biggest thing is that people often think that their job is what defines them, that their career is their life. And it's not. It's just a form of making money. Now, you can utilize your career and position it as a way to influence and to help the world. But I think so many people caught up in making a living that they don't live. And that's extremely important. To always just follow what's inside of you. Again, nobody knows what's inside of you like you. And don't be afraid to be courageous, and understand that courage does not mean that you're not scared. It does not mean that you don't have moments of fear. It just means you don't let that stop you.
Yes, indeed. For folks looking to connect with Mary, all of the links that Mary mentioned will be found at tomearl.com/Mary, tomearl.com/MARY, tomearl.com/Mary is where the show notes and links for today are. Mary, once again, this has been amazing. I appreciate you bringing your light and your insights and your wisdom and your positive energy to the celebration. And I know all of us have benefited for it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tom. Hope to see you soon.
Yes, same here. And to everybody listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you.
One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.